Everyone wanted him. Every woman in the city dreamed of being the one to wear his ring, to bear his name, to sit beside him as his queen. But only three dared to fight for him like their lives depended on it. Dayo was not just any man. He was the billionaire. The one who controlled businesses across the country, the one whose name was whispered with admiration and envy. He was tall, dark-skinned, with a commanding presence that made even the strongest men feel small. His wealth was endless, his power undeniable, and his charm dangerous. But Dayo was not a man who loved easily. Women came and went in his life, leaving behind broken hearts and shattered dreams. Yet, three women refused to be just another name in his past. They wanted more. They wanted all of him, and they were willing to do whatever it took to be the last woman standing. Abeni, Zainab, and Kemi. Three women, three different lives, but one goal: to be the wife of the most powerful man in the city. Abeni was the beautiful one, the woman who turned heads whenever she walked into a room. She had smooth, caramel skin, long, silky hair, and a body that made men lose their senses. She knew how to use her beauty, how to make a man weak with just one look. But behind that flawless face was a heart full of ambition. She didn't just want to be a rich man's wife. She wanted to be the most powerful woman in the country, and marrying Dayo was the only way to get there. Zainab was the elegant one, the woman who carried herself with grace and intelligence. She was from a wealthy family, well educated and highly respected. She knew how to handle power, how to stand beside a man without being overshadowed. She didn't need Dayo's money, she had her own. But she wanted his influence, his empire, his name, and she was ready to play the game to win. Kemi was the unexpected one, the woman no one saw coming. She was not born into wealth, not raised in luxury, but she had something the others didn't: determination. She had climbed her way up in life, built her own success, and now she wanted the ultimate prize. She was different from the other women. She didn't just want Dayo for his power, she wanted his love. But love alone wouldn't be enough to survive this war. Dayo knew all three women wanted him, and he enjoyed it. He watched them compete for his attention, each one trying to prove she was the best choice. He let them fight because he knew the truth. Only one of them would win, and the others would be left in the dust. The city was watching. The media covered every move, every event where the three women showed up, dressed to impress, smiling at the cameras, but secretly watching each other like enemies on a battlefield. Rumors spread like wildfire. Who was winning? Who would Dayo choose? Who would fall first? Then came the announcement. A grand party, an exclusive event where Dayo would make his decision known. Invitations were sent out to the most powerful people in the country. The press waited eagerly. The three women prepared themselves, knowing that this was the moment that would change everything. But when the night arrived and Dayo stood before the crowd, his voice calm but commanding, he dropped a bombshell that no one saw coming. "I will marry only one of you," he said, his eyes moving from Abeni to Zainab to Kemi. "But first, you must pass my test." A stunned silence filled the room. The three women exchanged glances, their hearts pounding. A test? What did he mean? Dayo smiled, a slow, knowing smile. Let the real battle begin. The silence in the grand hall was thick with tension. No one moved. No one spoke. The three women stared at Dayo, their faces unreadable, but their minds raced with questions. A test? What kind of test? Hadn't they already proven themselves? They had fought to be noticed, competed to be the best, and now, when they thought the battle was almost over, he was telling them it had only just begun. Dayo stepped forward, his deep voice cutting through the air. "You all claim to love me. You all believe you deserve to be my wife. But love is not enough. Beauty is not enough. Power is not enough. If you truly want to stand by my side, you must prove you are worthy." The audience whispered among themselves. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment. The media had been expecting an engagement announcement, a dramatic but predictable ending to the rivalry. Instead, they had been given something far more explosive, an open war for the billionaire's heart. Abeni, Zainab, and Kemi exchanged glances. None of them spoke, but their eyes said everything. They would not back down. They had come too far, sacrificed too much. Whatever test Dayo had in mind, they would face it, and they would win. Dayo's lips curved into a smile, amused by the fire in their eyes. "Good. Since you're all so determined, let's see how far you're willing to go." 2 days later, the invitations arrived. Each woman received a sealed letter delivered by Dayo's personal assistant. Inside, a simple message: meet me at my private island. Come alone. No assistants, no bodyguards, no distractions. This is where I will decide who is truly meant to be my wife. It was signed with his initials, DK. The media exploded with speculation. Why an island? Why alone? What kind of test was this? The three women didn't care about the questions. They packed their bags, boarded private jets, and arrived at the island, each one more determined than ever. The island was breathtaking. White sandy beaches, crystal clear waters, and a massive villa that stood like a palace in the middle of paradise. But none of them were here to admire the beauty. They were here to win. Dayo greeted them personally, dressed in a casual white linen shirt and dark slacks, his presence still as commanding as ever. He led them to an open-air lounge where drinks were served and the evening sun cast golden light over the ocean. Then he dropped the second bombshell. You each have 48 hours to prove to me that you deserve to be my wife, he said, leaning back in his chair. No tricks, no manipulation, no outside help, just you and me. Abeni's smile was confident. That's all? 2 days to show you why I'm the best choice? Consider it done. Zainab tilted her head, studying him. And how exactly do we prove ourselves? What are the rules? Dayo smirked. There are no rules. Just show me who you really are. Kemi sat quietly, her heart pounding. She had expected something difficult, but this was dangerous. Because in a war with no rules, people could do anything. And they did. The first night, Abeni made her move. She found Dayo by the infinity pool, a glass of whiskey in his hand, and slipped into the water, her silk dress clinging to her body. You already know I'm the perfect woman for you, she whispered, her voice smooth as honey. Let's stop pretending. Dayo chuckled, amused but not easily swayed. If you were truly perfect, I wouldn't need a test, would I? Abeni's eyes narrowed. She wasn't used to rejection, but she wasn't giving up. Zainab took a different approach. She didn't chase him. Instead, she sat across from him at dinner, discussing business, politics, and power moves. You don't need a wife who will follow you, she said. You need a woman who can stand beside you, a partner, not just a trophy. Dayo listened, impressed. But impressed was not the same as choosing. Then there was Kemi. She didn't seduce. She didn't try to impress. She simply sat with him under the stars, watching the waves. What if you don't need to test us? She asked softly. What if the right woman is the one who doesn't need to prove anything? Dayo turned to her, his eyes unreadable. The war was on. The second day brought desperation. Abeni and Zainab realized that Kemi was becoming a threat. She wasn't fighting like them. She was simply being herself. And somehow that was drawing Dayo in. Abeni made a bold move. She pulled Kemi aside, her voice low and sharp. Stay out of my way. You don't belong in this competition. Kemi met her gaze unshaken. If I don't belong here, then neither do you. Zainab, always strategic, took another route. She confronted Dayo directly. Let's be honest, she said. You already know who you're going to choose, don't you? Dayo's smirk was slow, dangerous, maybe. By the final night, tensions were at their peak. Each woman had played her best hand. Now all they could do was wait. Dayo stood before them, his expression unreadable. Tomorrow morning, I will announce my decision. The air was thick with anticipation. Who would he choose? Abeni, the stunning seductress? Zainab, the powerful strategist? Or Kemi, the unexpected contender? Then, just before midnight, something happened that none of them saw coming. A secret was exposed. A betrayal was revealed. And everything they thought they knew about this war changed in an instant. The night was supposed to be silent, a moment of calm before the storm of the final decision. But the island, wrapped in its false sense of paradise, became the setting for the ultimate betrayal. Abeni couldn't sleep. She had come too far, sacrificed too much to lose now. She paced in her room, replaying every move she had made. Her beauty was undeniable, her charm was unmatched, and yet she had seen it in Dayo's eyes. Hesitation. That hesitation had a name. Kemi. Abeni clenched her fists. Kemi had done nothing grand, nothing spectacular. She hadn't seduced, she hadn't played games. She had simply existed, and somehow that was enough to make Dayo pause. But Abeni wasn't going to let an ordinary girl take what she had fought for. She needed an advantage, a weapon. And then, like fate itself was speaking, she heard voices outside her window. She moved carefully, pushing the curtains aside, and what she saw made her blood turn ice cold. Zainab and Dayo together. Not in a lover's embrace, but in something far more dangerous, a secret meeting in the shadows. Abeni's heart pounded as she pressed herself against the window, straining to hear. Zainab's voice was calm, steady. Dayo, let's stop pretending. We both know you're not looking for love. This is about power, and you need a wife who will make you stronger, not a distraction. Dayo took a slow sip of his drink, watching her. Go on. Zainab stepped closer, her eyes locked onto his. Marry me, and I'll bring you alliances that even your billions can't buy. I will secure your name, your empire, your legacy. No scandals, no emotional nonsense, just power. Dayo smirked, intrigued. And what do you get out of it? Zainab didn't even blink. A kingdom. Abeni's breath caught in her throat. So this was the game. Zainab wasn't just here to win his heart, she was here to own everything. And worse, Dayo was considering it. Abeni knew she had to act fast. She turned away, her mind racing. Zainab thinks she's smart, but I can be stormed down the hallway, and knocked on Kemi's door. Kemi, half asleep, opened it, surprised. What do you want? Abeni stepped inside without permission, her voice low and sharp. You need to wake up. You're in a war, and you don't even know it. Kemi sighed, rubbing her temples. Abeni, I don't have time for your games. This is not a game. Abeni's eyes burned with urgency. Zainab just met with Dayo. She's not here for love. She's here for power. She's cutting deals behind our backs. Kemi frowned. And why are you telling me this? Abeni exhaled. Because if she wins, you and I both lose. If I can't be the one standing next to Dayo, then at least let it be you. Kemi was silent, searching Abeni's face. You don't care about me winning. You just don't want her to. Abeni folded her arms. Call it what you want, but I don't like being played. Kemi shook her head. I didn't come here to fight like this. If Dayo chooses Zainab, then so be it. Abeni laughed bitterly. You still think this is about choice? Wake up, Kemi. Men like Dayo don't choose, they take. And right now, Zainab is making him an offer he can't refuse. Kemi's stomach twisted. She didn't doubt Abeni's words. Something about Zainab had always been too calculated, too perfect. But what was she supposed to do? Abeni leaned in. We expose her. Kemi frowned. Expose her how? Abeni smiled, but there was nothing kind about it. Every powerful person has a secret, and I have a feeling Zainab's biggest one is right here on this island. By morning, the war had shifted. The final announcement was set to take place on the Grand Terrace, overlooking the ocean. The media had been invited, ready to capture the moment when Dayo would choose his bride. Zainab arrived first, dressed in a stunning emerald gown, her head held high. Abeni followed, her expression unreadable, her red dress bold and defiant. Kemi was last, dressed simply, her face calm. Dayo stepped forward, his presence commanding. The cameras flashed, the crowd held their breath. This has been a journey, he began, his voice smooth and controlled. I have seen your strengths, your flaws, your ambitions, and now the time has come to make my decision. Zainab smiled slightly, confident. Abeni waited, her hands clenched. Kemi stared at him, steady but unsure. Chaos! A voice rang out from the back. Before you make your decision, Dayo, you might want to see this. All heads turned. A man walked onto the terrace, tall and dark, dressed in a sharp suit. His presence was magnetic, his energy dangerous. Dayo's eyes narrowed. Who are you? The man smirked. Someone who knows your future wife better than you do. He turned to Zainab, and his next words shattered everything. Isn't that right? My wife? Gasps erupted. Reporters scrambled, cameras clicking furiously. Dayo's face darkened. What did you just say? Zainab went pale. He's lying. The man pulled out a document and held it up. A marriage certificate. The room exploded. Abeni covered her mouth in shock. Kemi's heart pounded. The media went wild. Dayo's voice was deadly quiet. You're already married? Zainab's lips parted, but no words came out. The man smiled coldly. Yes, to me, and she never divorced me. Silence. Then Dayo's voice rang out, low and sharp. Guards, remove her from my sight. Zainab opened her mouth to protest, but two security men stepped forward, grabbing her arms. The powerful, untouchable Zainab, exposed, ruined, finished. As she was dragged away, her eyes locked onto Abeni's. Realization dawned. Abeni had set her up. A slow, wicked smile spread across Abeni's face. Checkmate. Dayo exhaled, running a hand over his face. This changes everything. He turned to the remaining two women. Abeni, Kemi. One of them would still be his wife. But who? And as the dust settled, a new question arose. Was Zainab the only one hiding secrets? The air on the terrace was thick with tension, the kind that made hearts pound and breaths uneasy. Zainab was gone, disgraced, humiliated, destroyed. But the war was far from over. Dayo turned slowly, his eyes scanning the two remaining women. Abeni, Kemi. One of them would wear the crown. One of them would walk away with nothing. The reporters whispered among themselves, cameras clicking, capturing every flicker of emotion. Dayo sighed, adjusting his suit. I didn't expect this, he admitted, his voice steady but sharp. But I will not allow one person's deceit to ruin this moment. A choice must still be made. Abeni stepped forward, her red dress clinging to her body like fire itself. Her smile was slow, dangerous. Then make it, Dayo. Don't hesitate. You already know who deserves to stand by your side. Kemi, standing a few steps behind, met his gaze without fear. If this is about who deserves you, then maybe you should ask yourself if you deserve us. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Dayo arched a brow, surprised. No woman had ever dared speak to him that way, not in public, not with the world watching. Abeni smirked. Oh, Kemi, always the saint. She turned to Dayo. Don't let her fool you. She acts innocent, but deep down she's no different from the rest of us. She wants power too. She just hides it behind that sweet face. Kemi's jaw tightened. You think I'm here for power? She looked at Dayo, her voice unwavering. I don't want to be chosen because I played a better game than the others. I want to be chosen because I matter. And if I don't, then I'd rather walk away now. Silence. For the first time, Dayo was unsure. Abeni took another step closer, her perfume wrapping around him. I can give you everything, Dayo. Passion, strength, loyalty. A woman who will fight for you, not against you. Dayo's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Then, a sound, a voice. From behind the crowd, a man's voice called out, Are you really going to choose when you don't know the full truth? Heads turned. A tall, older man walked onto the terrace, his posture rigid, his face shadowed with unreadable emotions. Dayo's breath hitched. He knew that man. Kabiru? The name sent a ripple through the guests. Kabiru Adebayo, Dayo's uncle. The man who had once been the closest advisor to his late father. But he had disappeared years ago, vanished from the business world without a trace. Yet here he was. Dayo stiffened. What are you doing here? Kabiru's eyes were cold. I came because I can't sit back and watch you make the biggest mistake of your life. Dayo's fists clenched. And what mistake is that? Kabiru turned to the two women. Choosing between them. The statement sent a shockwave through the room. Abeni scoffed. Excuse me, Kemi frowned. What do you mean? Kabiru stepped forward, his voice like steel. You think this is about love? About marriage? It's never been about that. He turned to Dayo. You have been blind, nephew, distracted by beauty, by competition, by the thrill of the chase, but you forgot the most important thing. Dayo's jaw tightened. And what is that? Kabiru's lips curled into a smirk. You are not the real heir. Dead silence. Dayo's heart stopped. The cameras froze. Even Abeni looked shaken. Kemi gasped. What? Kabiru pulled out an envelope, handing it to Dayo. Your father had a secret, one that even you didn't know. Dayo's hand shook as he ripped it open. His eyes scanned the papers inside. His stomach dropped. His blood ran cold. It was a birth certificate. And it wasn't his. It belonged to someone else. Someone born before him. A brother. His voice was barely a whisper. This is a lie. Kabiru shook his head. It's the truth. Your father had another son. One he kept hidden. One who by law is the true heir to everything. Dayo's hands trembled as he stared at the paper. A brother. A hidden heir. Everything he had built, everything he had fought for, was all based on a lie. The crowd murmured in shock. The reporters scribbled furiously. Abeni's face darkened. This is ridiculous. Who is this so-called heir? Kabiru's lips curled. He's coming, and when he does, everything will change. Kemi stepped forward, her voice steady. So, Dayo isn't the rightful heir? What happens now? Dayo's fists clenched. I don't care about some old secret. I've built this empire with my own hands. No piece of paper will take it from me. Kabiru's smirk deepened. That's where you're wrong. A figure emerged from the entrance. Tall, powerful, a presence that demanded attention. The crowd parted, revealing a man in a sleek black suit. His face was sharp, his posture unshakable. A mirror of Dayo, but colder, fiercer, ruthless. The room went silent. The man's deep voice cut through the air. Hello, brother. Dayo's world collapsed. Abeni gasped, recognizing danger when she saw it. Kemi's breath caught, sensing the shift in power. The man stepped closer, his eyes locking onto Dayo's. My name is Tunde Alade, and I've come to take back what's mine. The weight of his words crushed the room. Dayo's heart pounded. This wasn't a fight for love anymore. This was a fight for survival. Abeni's eyes flickered between the two men. Then she smiled, a slow, cunning smile. She was already choosing sides. Kemi exhaled deeply, shaking her head. This is madness. Kabiru folded his arms. No, this is justice. The tension snapped like a whip. Dayo squared his shoulders, his voice dark. If you think you can just walk in and take everything I've built, you're mistaken. Tunde smirked. We'll see about that. A war had begun, but it was no longer about marriage. No longer about love. It was about power. And in the end, only one man would be left standing. The end, or just the beginning.